It's pretty crazy. Starfield is a game that has sort of existed as part of this YouTube channel's entire history. And the history with this game is deep, man. It's crazy. It's already been 2.5 years, coming up in June, 3 years since Starfield was officially confirmed and announced by Bethesda with their teaser trailer. That was that long ago already, but before that, this game has been talked about forever. Say what you will about Bethesda's strategy to reveal the game so early along with The Elder Scrolls 6 in 2018. I'm of the mind, not that it's a super unpopular opinion, but I'm of the mind that it was an absolutely horrific strategy. But it is what it is. Today I want to ask the one simple question that I don't believe I've asked before in a video, and that is, when will Starfield release? My answer? November 2021. Why the hell do I think this? Well, in its simplest form, it just feels like it's time. It feels like if this game's ever going to be ready, it has to be now, considering the long history. But I wouldn't just come here with that. I need some actual arguments, some actual points. So let's take a look at the history of Bethesda Game Studios' brand new IP, Starfield. Their first original franchise, their first original IP since The Elder Scrolls. Rumours and leaks were spreading throughout the gaming community, throughout the Bethesda community for years prior to the 2018 announcement, and that all started back in 2013 when the trademark for Starfield was first filed by ZeniMax, which is the parent company of Bethesda Softworks and Bethesda Game Studios as well, by extension. You know, you get a random trademark called Starfield, everyone's like, what the hell is this? Is this a brand new game? Is this... It could be anything, you know, these companies, they file these trademarks for anything, for any potential random name, idea that they may or may not use at some point. It's very common practice, so naturally, it would almost seem unlikely that this would become something substantial in the future. Because it could just be a project name, it could be a working title, it could be a name for a mobile game, you know, it could be anything obviously. But nonetheless, that is the origin of the Starfield name right there, all the way back in 2013. So you'd imagine, of course, the game has been in pre-production for around about that long. We know for sure pre-production began before Fallout 4 released in November of 2015, and that is typically how Bethesda Game Studios has historically operated, with Skyrim being in pre-production before Fallout 3, and Fallout 4 before Skyrim, so on and so forth. So it makes sense Starfield was a concept, presumably by Todd Howard and his team back in 2013, 2 years before Fallout 4, and then probably full pre-production began maybe late 2014, 2015 timeframe-ish. So that's how long this game has been in development for. And this is where things can get a bit tricky, because it really does depend on how you choose to interpret Fallout 76's development, which we'll get into, who worked on that game really, and how long development time was spent there, and how many resources were spent there. And we'll get into that, but taking that game out of the equation for just a second, because in my opinion, as I'll get into, I think it should be taken out of the equation, Starfield is the game that's taken Bethesda Game Studios the longest to make by far in their history. The space between Oblivion and Fallout 3 was 2 years, the space between Fallout 3 then to Skyrim was 3 years, the space between Skyrim to Fallout 4 was 4 years. But by November 2021, my predicted release date for Starfield, it would have been 6 years since Fallout 4 released, which perfectly aligns with the history of them taking slightly longer each and every time, and it would make sense it would just be a little bit longer, an extra year if you follow the pattern, and video games is becoming more complex and more expensive to develop over time naturally. There were just last year, I can't remember when last year, I think it was like in the middle of last year, it's kind of a blur honestly, but there were those substantial leaked screenshots for the game that were released, and obviously it's still not confirmed and won't be confirmed for quite some time, I'd imagine, if those are real. In my opinion, they're real, and there's plenty of evidence out there to support that they're real. Their logos align on the spaceman's suit to the logo of Starfield, and there's other things that seem to indicate it's real. It could be fake, it would be a very good fake in my opinion. If you just look at the screenshot, it looks like a Bethesda Game Studios game. If you've ever played a BGS game in third person, which who does, but if you've ever entered the third person perspective, this looks like a Bethesda Game Studios game running in engine, 100%. So I choose to believe that screenshot is real, and the leaker of those screenshots indicated that they are from an earlier 2018 build of the game. And obviously, it's a screenshot, it's not a video, it's hard to go off on, so I apologise if I'm looking too in-depth into things, but in my opinion, this looks like a pretty solid build, pretty solid graphically in terms of what we could expect for a final game. It didn't look overly graphically impressive or anything like that, but if you look at that as a 2018 build, to think of where we are now 3 years later with its development, I mean, I don't know, to me that indicates just another small bit of evidence that we're getting close to the end of development for Starfield, if it was already looking like that 3 years ago. But as we continue our chronological timeline of information on Starfield, like I mentioned, of course, it was revealed in June of 2018 at Bethesda's E3 conference, with that very, very teaser trailer that showed nothing but a space station, some CG bullshit, and a logo. But in an interview at E3 at the very same time, Todd Howard did confirm that Starfield, at that moment in E3 2018, Starfield was in full production. But not only that it was in full production, but it was playable. And at that time, The Elder Scrolls 6 was their game that was in pre-production. This was at the time where it was 6 months before Fallout 76's release. Fallout 76 was developed by Bethesda Game Studios, that is the logo on the box. So you'd expect, by that logic, that Bethesda Game Studios and Todd Howard's team, considering Todd Howard did present and promote Fallout 76 all E3 long, that was the main game they were working on. But of course, the fact him saying Starfield is in full production at that time is only the first bit of evidence, which is kind of common knowledge to us at this point, that Todd Howard's core team at Bethesda Game Studios was not directly involved, or not at least very strongly involved, with Fallout 76's development. As I've covered on the channel in the past, Bethesda Game Studios expanded drastically in the 2018 timeframe, has continued to expand quite substantially over the last few years. I've made multiple videos about their expansions and what they could mean. They opened new studios in Dallas, in Austin, in Canada. Of course, the legendary developer known as Bethesda Game Studios is still very much the Maryland team, the team located at Bethesda's HQ. They are the team of 200 or so people that we know for creating Fallout 3 and 4 and for creating the Elder Scrolls franchise. So since they expanded, we know the other BGS teams that have been opened, they've worked on things like the Elder Scrolls Blades, or Blades? What's it called? That, you know what I mean, the Elder Scrolls mobile game, whatever the name of it is. They were working on Fallout Shelter, we know. They were working on Skyrim VR, Skyrim Special Edition. They've been busy with other things, including Fallout 76, which was mainly developed by Bethesda Game Studios in Austin, Texas. Now, at the time before 76's release, they were pretty vague about this. I think they wanted gamers to typically believe that the core team that you know and love at BGS was creating 76, when that just wasn't true. I'm sure they were acting as support. I'm sure that there was a small team of people in Maryland helping on the 76 project. I'm sure Todd Howard was overseeing some aspects of its development, but BGS expanded those years ago in order to create all these different projects, one of them being Fallout 76, which was not developed by the core Maryland team. The core Maryland team, as Todd said himself, was in full production on Starfield. They were not working on two AAA games at the same time, there's no way. If the core BGS team was working on Fallout 76 for all that time, then we wouldn't expect Starfield forever, but we know that's not true. And even though he could just be adding to his workload a little bit, the fact that Todd Howard was just confirmed to be producing Machine Games' brand new Indiana Jones game in development indicates to me that a lot of his work on Starfield is already done, which is just another great sign. So I don't know guys. I think this is all starting to make a lot of sense in my brain. 2021. And why November in 2021 specifically? Well, I mean, Bethesda just likes releasing games in November. Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Skyrim, all November games. It's a trend clearly for the studio, so it only makes sense to continue that, I think. A solid counter-argument, which applies really to anything in the games industry, anything in the entertainment industry with film and television as well, when you're talking about projects currently in development and the chances of them getting delayed, is of course just the COVID counter-argument. How did COVID affect development of the game? How has BGS responded to COVID? Are they still working at home? Most likely. And how has efficiency in development dropped since that? My counter to that counter would simply be, while it's very possible that it doesn't release in 2021 for COVID reasons, the game was already in full production for over 5 years before COVID hit, and I think that progress on the game would have had to have been, I'm not a developer, but the progress on the game would have had to have been drastically substantial already. So I don't know, November 2021, I think it gives the team plenty of time to still respond to COVID. I'm sure they're already in their own workflow now. I'm sure they've got it all figured out. And for that reason, I still think, I stand by, it makes a lot of sense to expect Starfield November 2021 on next-gen consoles. Could it release on PS4 and Xbox One? That's a whole other argument. Well, of course, with the whole Microsoft deal, PS4 might be left out, who knows. But in terms of releasing on last-gen consoles being the question, it's possible. BGS doesn't really have any history with releasing cross-gen games. All the games have always been for one console generation at a time, so I think it's most likely to expect it only on next-gen consoles, but hey, who knows? Anything can happen. But for all the reasons I've mentioned today, I think Starfield is really close. I've made my official prediction, my real prediction being November 2021. But regardless of being that specific, I think the game's close. I think that at the latest would be 2022. This game isn't going to slip beyond 2023 in my opinion. I really don't see that happening. If that were to happen, that would be even more embarrassing for Bethesda and their awful decision to announce the game so early, which was really exciting at the time, but when we've gone this long without any info, it sort of made the whole thing pretty hilarious. When you compare it to the Fallout 4 strategy of, let's only reveal the game the same year it released, this is the polar opposite and it's not a good look. But regardless of whether they do the same thing this year, hopefully, I hope they do the full trailer, the reveal, the re-reveal I suppose, more gameplay information. They do the full blowout before the end of year release date. Similar to Fallout 4, of course, with it not being quite the same because they've already revealed the game, but doing the full blowout before the end of the year, I think that makes a lot of sense. But 2022, at the absolute latest for Starfield. Beyond that, there would have to be something really wrong at Bethesda Game Studios and with Todd Howard's team for that to be the case. But anyway, I hope you sort of found some enjoyment in that. I realised I've been speaking really softly into the microphone this entire time. I didn't really intend for that to be the case, but I wanted to chat about Starfield again. I wanted to throw out my official predictions. I love talking about predictions on the channel. I love seeing if I'm right or wrong. It goes both ways, but hopefully this is one of those situations where I'm right. But of course, you've got to leave a comment. Tell me, do you think Starfield will release November 2021 as well? Do you agree with me? If not, when will it come out? Please, leave a comment, like the video. All of it helps a lot. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Thank you very much. Appreciate you watching. Take care, and farewell.